So we have the local screen recording going on. I hope your voices will be also recorded. Huh. Okay, so as you remember, we're going to see what a variable, the container in JavaScript looks like. So there are a few different approaches or methods of creating these variables. By the way, do the people connected online see my screen? You should be seeing a text editor and a console. So this is a stackbleeds.com project, and I have a TypeScript file open here. So whatever I write on the left side, we'll be seeing on the right side in the console. So whatever we're going to do today is basically just console logging some stuff. And to the people who don't know what a console log is, it is basically a function which just throw something into your terminal, into your UI, whatever. In this case, it just logs whatever we provide to this function. What is a function? We'll talk about that later. Let me just zoom slightly. We'll talk about that, but just know if you would like to see whatever value it is on the right side, you just write console log. So that's what I will be doing a lot today. So in JavaScript, we have two modern ways and one old way or obsolete way of creating variables. So I'm not going to show you the old way because it is not that used nowadays, but I'm not going to really explain the differences between the new and old ways. However, I'm going to show how you can define a variable with the old way too. So the approaches are, let me start with a comment, let, okay, and const. So this first one is the old approach, which was basically there in the beginning of time up, and it is still there. And these two options, which are the modern way of declaring variables, we have them starting from 2015 or ECMAScript 6. So to declare a variable, to create a container that you're going to put your present in, what you do is you write the keyword, and these are, of course, keyword, meaning, if you recall from the previous session, we cannot use this as variable names. So so to define a variable, we type var, which stands for variable, of course, and we type in the name or the name of the variable. Okay, so person name. Okay. This semicolon is not required, so it's basically it could be your personal style to put a semicolon at the end of a line or not put it. So I put it. You may not do that. So as you recall, as I was explaining yesterday, we have a naming convention in JavaScript, a generally agreed upon. So I'm using a camel case here, meaning the P is in lowercase and N is in uppercase. So what this does, this creates the container, and here we can put some values in the container. So person name equals to 5. Now what this means, we have two lines. On line 3, we create this variable, right? And on line 5, we put something in that variable. And this equal sign is the assignment operator. So this doesn't mean that the value of person is equal to 5. This means that assign 5 to the variable person name, right? So we're putting the value into that container called person name. However, we could do this even shorter because on one line I created a container, and on another line I said put number 5 into person name. So what we can do is we can shorten this, and we can simply remove this part and both define and assign a value on the same line. So this is how you would usually define your values, and the process of assigning the value when you create it is called value initialization. So you basically declare your variable, you create a variable, in technical terms, that's called defining a variable. And the assignment is basically value initialization. So you declare a variable and assign a value at the same time. Cool. So what's the second way? And of course, when you declare a variable this way, you can basically person name, you can change the value, and bounce to console log person name, it's 10, right? So as you would rightfully expect, as this is a synchronous code, we'll discuss slightly the synchronous and asynchronous manners of executing code. These are synchronous operations, right? So these are synchronous expressions. So starting from line 3, and when we read from line 3 to line 7, whatever we read, the output, we're going to get the output in that same order. So when we declare the variable person name on line 3, then we try to log that value. It's 5 as expected, as we created the variable on line 3 and initialized with a value. And on line 6, then we change the value to 10, and we should rightfully expect that the value is changed, and it is the case. Now, so what happens when we do not assign a value when we create a variable? So what's get logged is this undefined. So what undefined means is that you basically created a container, but you never put a value in that container. That's what undefined means. However, there is also another type in JavaScript, which is kind of similar to undefined, but the semantics is slightly different. So we can do something like this, is null, and we can also log. Now it says null. So both undefined and null kind of indicate that the variable doesn't have an actual value, so it's kind of empty. However, the difference between them is that null is an intentional value, right? So when you declare your variables and you do not put anything in there, you will always get undefined, so you will never get null. So when you put null in your variable, it is an intentional action. So you intentionally want to say, hey, your value is intentionally empty, right? So it's not that I did not initialize. It's not that I forgot to initialize. Your value is intentionally empty. So that's the kind of difference between them. This is the semantics here. Okay. So what are the other types of declaring variables? Well, we have also let and const. So let's start with let numeric value is equal to 5. And if we console log this thing, of course, we can expect to have 5 in there, or 56, whatever it is, it doesn't matter, 56.5. Yeah, by the way, I didn't get to the numeric type yet. I'm just trying to show you how to declare variables and work with the variables. So I will explain what this is and what we can do with numbers later on. So there is a small difference. Well, if we go into the technical depths, there's a big difference between var and let and const. But in the context of this course, the assumption is that there is very small difference between let and var. So we can simply consider var as an obsolete way of declaring variables and just ignore it and not use it at all. But just know that the var exists. So the two types we were left with to declare variables is let, and in this case, of course, we can again go ahead and change the value, and that gets reflected as expected. So we just reassigned another value to our container, to our variable, and the value is changed. Now let's go to const. But const is not what you think it is. Value that cannot be reassigned. Let's again go with numbers. So if you noticed, I typed in a really long title or name for this variable, and it is intentional because the name of this variable basically reflects how const works. Because if you would expect that the value of your variable doesn't change during the execution of your script, you should use const. So the limitation or the difference between let and const is that now when you try to change the value, you will get an error. So you are not allowed to reassign another value to your variable. However, you can still change the value. Does that make sense? It should not. It shouldn't make sense right now. But the thing is that, again, the technicalities, right? The terms are different. Reassign, change value. So at the moment, we can consider this is the same because we're talking about the primitive values. However, once we get to arrays, objects, we will see that when you declare your variable as const, you cannot reassign, use the equal sign. When I say reassign, it means you can't by using the equal sign. So with const, you cannot use the equal sign to assign a new value. However, you can still change the value in your original object or array. What is an object? What is an array? These are the object is the base data type, and the array is another thing that we'll get to in other sessions. So just know that the difference between let is that let allows you to reassign new values, const does not allow that. So that is the difference between them. Okay. So how to tell what kind of value, how to tell what is the type of your variable. So there's a mechanism, there's a way in JavaScript to do that. And I'm going to copy paste this variable and called numeric value. So given the variable, I would like to know what is the type of the thing that is inside that container. So to do that, we can use the type of operator. It is not a function, it is an operator. So what we see here is that rightfully we could expect that the type of numeric value is a number because we have a number in this variable and it says number, which seems pretty correct. So no issues there. Let's maybe define another variable. I contain null, and another one. I am an undefined. Now, I'm not going to explicitly assign a value to undefined because that's the default value. Okay, so let's just copy paste the type of, and I'm going to see, let's see what is the type of this. I'm an undefined variable. So it says the value that is in the variable I am an undefined is actually undefined. So undefined by itself is a type, is a primitive type as we discussed. So this is also normal. Okay. Yeah. So we should expect that the same happens to null, right? So that's pretty usual. We should not have an exception, but there you go. The variable I contain null contains null, and we discussed that null and undefined are their own types. However, what we see here is it shows object. It's pretty strange because null does not have the usual properties of objects in undefined. So this is actually a mistake, an officially recognized mistake by the committee of the standardization of JavaScript. This has been there from the almost very beginning of JavaScript, and this is recognized officially that the type of operator works incorrectly with nulls. So everyone knows about it, but they cannot fix it because it will break the internet. So since this comes from the beginning of time, this has been used. People relied on type of null being object to kind of check if the value is null itself. So if you if you suddenly change the type of null to null or whatever it is except for object, the internet will just break because we just rely on obsolete things too much. That is actually why the new standards are trying to kind of move on incrementally and actually add things instead of breaking things, because when you design something like a language, you would have to take into consideration such things. And given JavaScript is one of the most popular and used languages in the universe, you just cannot break things like this, even if it would be logical to do so. Okay, so now we know about type of. Cool. So now I'm going to get to the first data type, and the first data type today is going to be, and the first data type of today is going to be the boolean. So let me ask you, a question. Are you in this room sitting right now?
True.
Charlotte knows where I'm going. One, correct. So her normal answer would be yes, and the other possible answer could be no. She could also answer maybe, but we're not talking about quantum mechanics. So it would be either yes or no. So two possibilities, two options. So it is either logically true that she is in the room right now with us, or it is logically not true that she is in the room right now. And it is true that she's with us. So we're glad that she's here. So Boolean, what I'm getting to is the data type Boolean represents the true, false, 1, 0, yes, no, possible, impossible, the binary options. So we have two possible options. And I'm creating convoyed with this, true and false, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you recall from yesterday's session, both of these are reserved words. So if I do let true 1, we're going to have some kind of syntax issues, so we cannot do this. Okay, so true and false. What do you think? How can we get such Boolean values? Like, what would be the answer or the result where we would get a Boolean value? So what kind of operation or condition? Okay, so what is a condition?
Or condition where we get the answer true or false. For example, let's say if 5 is greater than 6, it will return false.
Okay, and what's that greater than 6? What is that?
Operator.
And what kind of operator?
Mathematical.
No. Yeah, it's a comparison operator. So we can get these Boolean values in a bunch of operations, but the very basic one is the comparison operators when you compare values with one another. I'm going to show a couple of examples of comparison operators now, but we will be talking about actually comparing different data types together later on, because that's one of the tricky parts of JavaScript. And so for example, let's go with console log 5 is, so what should I put here to get true? Okay, so 5 is greater than 3. Okay, so easy, 3, 2 easy. Let's go home. It's just 2. Okay. So if I put here 5, we get false because 5 is not greater than 5. That's kind of logical and expected. However, we have the greater or equal operator, comparison operator, and here we get 5. True. So one of the options could be the comparison operator. Another option would be the negation operator or the not operator. So I can put the exclamation mark here and it's going to say 5. So and we can put another one is going to say true. I'm not going to explain what is this because we'll get into more details when we get to the comparison operators. Cool. So that would be one way to get the Boolean value. Another way would be if we'll see when we get to the strings, right? I'll show a couple of functions that or operations that we can do with strings, and these operations are going to return Boolean value. So that's why we kind of start with Booleans, because they are simple to understand, that they are just, there's not much to talk about them. It's just true or false. You cannot do much with them. Yeah, so maybe you can do some logical operations with them. So you can say true and false. You can do something like that. You will get and false. You'll get false. So this means basically both my values have to be true. But again, we'll get to this when we start with the comparison. So yeah, so that's that actually about Booleans. Yeah, now I'm going to go to numbers or numeric values. Numbers. As you have seen in my yesterday session, numbers are strange in JavaScript because 0.1 plus 0.2 is not equal to 0.3. So I think we should start with the explanation of why. So there are different ways to represent numbers in computers, and there are different standards that are published, and different engines, programming language interpreters use to represent numbers, of course, in the computer. So whatever values we type or whatever values we put in our variables, of course, these are somehow represented in the computer memory, right? So and we do not have unlimited memory, so we should somehow kind of constrain things and represent stuff. So in JavaScript, we have this 60. Okay, so this is getting really 64-bit numbers, meaning we use 64-bit space in the memory to represent numbers. And actually only 52 bits are meant to basically represent the number, hence the limitation, hence the maximum and minimum values, which are 2 to the power of 53 minus 1. So this is a really big number, which is usually quite sufficient for many mathematical operations, but not always.
Sorry, can you repeat the last sentence about this 52-bit?
Yeah, so in the memory, all the numbers in JavaScript in memory take 64 bits. However, the exact value of, well, not exact, but that's the problem with JavaScript. You are not able to represent exact values, as I will show in a moment. So the actual value of the number takes up 52 bits. So the other ones are some other bits to represent whether the value is negative or positive, etc. Some control bits. So we have some constraints in JavaScript. Soon I will show that the definitive 0.1, the value 0.1 itself is an approximation. It's not an exact value in JavaScript. Okay. So there are different types of numbers. Of course, we have decimal numbers, the numbers that we count on our fingers. These are called decimal numbers. We have hexadecimal numbers, for example, 0FF. This is the notation of defining a hexadecimal number. And given the number 56, let's take the number 56. We can, so this is a decimal number. We can convert decimal numbers or hexadecimal numbers or from one kind of base to another. So for example, we can do to string and 16, for example. But, okay, so what happens? So what I try to do is I try to use something called toString, and I did the same, and I use the same kind of dot here, like we have in console log, but it doesn't work. And to make it work, I have to put 2 dots there. Does this look familiar? This shouldn't look strange to you, actually. So what we have here is we have the number 56 converted to its hexadecimal representation, which is 38. Now the thing is, okay. So this was strange. Let's maybe define a variable here. So const number value is equal to 56. So let's try this. Now this works with 1 dot. Now the thing here is that 56 is the literal value that we used here, and when you try to get any kind of properties of the number, etc., so the very first dot is treated as the decimal dot, right? Because you can have 56.5. You can have this kind of numbers, and in JavaScript we use dots to represent decimal numbers. So when we wrote the first dot, the interpreter, the engine, thinks that we are specifying the decimal dot. Now to say this is the actual value, you put another dot, and there you go. We have all of our functions here. So that's a quick trick.
And why 48 was the output?
Because we converted the decimal number 56 to hexadecimal number. So that's why we changed the base of the numbers. Okay. So we can do some interesting stuff with numbers, but I'm going to introduce you to some mathematical operations. We have also a small standard library of some math operations. So I'm going to introduce you to that. Let's also go with
Sorry, can you look at that out?
yeah, sure. Comparison, yes. That's when we're talking about the comparison of right now. Yeah, so console log. Of course, we can expect to have some mathematical operations that normal. We can add, we can subtract. We can multiply values. That's normal. We can divide values, and also as expected, the mathematical operations are grouped by the priority. So, for example, the division and multiplication operations have higher priority. So, as in mathematics, so they will happen kind of first, and then we will have the addition. And the manual way of grouping values in mathematical operations comes from the mathematics itself. We can use the parentheses to just change the priority. So in this case, whatever we have in the parentheses will have the highest priority. So we'll have the addition first and then the division, hence the value has changed. So to just confirm that the priority in this case is the division, I will just put parentheses around these values. Nothing changed, so we have the priorities correct. So I'm not going to bore you with this mathematical stuff. I'm just showing what we can do with numeric values here. And interesting. So I mentioned we have this math library. So let's see what we can do with that. So let's go with console.log, and we have math. You start with the uppercase. We write this uppercase math. It provides some kind of properties in there. There are actually lots of them. And these first ones are actually constant values. We have the pi value, 3.14159. So if you recall, yesterday we were discussing that the naming convention in JavaScript is that constants are written in uppercase. So that's what we have here. So the first one would be random. So what this does, this gets us a value from 0 to 1. When 1 is exclusive, 0 and is inclusive. So we get a value from 0 to 1, and each time I change the code, you can see that the value is updated. So it kind of generates a random value. This would be quite beneficial. And we will do an example here, a quick task for us. I can see everyone has their laptops. So so we now have enough information to do the following. Given that the math random returns values from 0 to 1, we need to write a code that will return us a value from min to max, right? So let's say we have a const min is 5 and the const max is 10. Using math random, you will have 10 minutes. You will have 10 minutes to write a code with this min and max constants to return a value from min to max. Okay, people, I suggest everyone stops typing and let's look at the screen. So I will try to explain the kind of logical steps I would take to solve this. And by the way, when I mentioned that math random returns a number from 0 to 1, what to do to get a number from 0 to max, and then iterate from there, I was trying to kind of help you. So, so let's see what we would do. Let's move min and max to here. Okay. Cool. And I put more something. Okay. Okay, just a second. I'm trying to make so we can see stuff here. Okay, that's all okay. Cool. Anyways, as I've explained, math.random returns a value from 0 to 1 and 1 exclusively, meaning you will never get 1, right? So you will always get a number from 0 to 1. Now, the problem statement is that given these two variables, min and max, we would need to get a number from min to max. Now, there are a bunch of ways of doing so, using even for loops or whatever there is, but we were looking for some basic mathematical kind of operations here. So if math.random returns a number from 0 to 1, how do I get a number from 0 to max?
Just multiply.
Correct. So I will just multiply with max. So this kind of, let's copy past up, because I'm trying to also explain the logical steps I would do. So on line 42, we have constant log math random. It always logs a number from 0 to 1. On the next line, we have the multiplication. Now this will get me a number from 0 to max, because 0 times any number is 0. And a number from 0 to 1 multiplied by max gives me a number that is lower than max. Ideally max. So this is my range. Okay. So what happens if I just add min to this? What happens? What happens here? Plus min. Now we're getting a range from min to max plus min, right? Now this is close. The minimum min is there, but now we have the issue with the upper range, which is now max plus min instead of only max. Now, how to solve this issue? Okay. So instead of just multiplying with max, I mean the math random, just multiplying with max, what we could multiply it with would be max minus min. Okay, so well, what does this give us? This just gives us a range from 0 to max minus min. Okay, so basically in our case, it gives us a range from 0 to 5. Now to get a range from 5 to 10, what we're going to do, we're going simply to add the min here, right? So plus mean. And what we have here is mean to max. Do you see the logic here? Right? On the previous step, we have a range from 0 to max minus mean. Now here we will have max minus mean plus mean. And what this does, the minus mean plus mean is 0, as we know in normal mathematics. And max minus 0 is also max. So this would be the kind of simplest, most basic solution to this problem. Now we can also come to this conclusion by multiplying, dividing, plus, minus, wherever for cycles we can for loops we can do that. But this was kind of the basic step we're looking for. Okay. Sure. That is correct. Yeah, that is correct. The problem statement was give me a number from mean to max. And of course, as I mentioned, that math.random gives us a number from 0 to 1, and 1 is exclusive. So it's kind of basically obvious that what I was requesting from you is having the max also exclusive. So this structure. Sure. But thanks for clarifying. Sure. Okay, so let's do some 10 minutes or 15 minutes of break, right? And then we'll continue. We should get started. We'll rather continue because we also have some other topics to cover. However, I would also do we have any questions regarding that mean max thing? Or okay, cool. So again, as I said, in JavaScript we have there's a standard that we follow in JavaScript. I mean, to internally represent numbers, and what we have here on the top is we have a couple of console logs, and these two fees. This is an interesting function on numbers because it allows you to specify the number of the number of decimal points after your kind of comma, right? So if you yes, sorry about that. All right, I didn't figure do we have the recording? Oh yes, sorry about that. So again, we have this number 0.1, right, or 0.1. So what I was saying is that we have this interesting two fixed function, which you can pass some number. So what this number means too, it means kind of format this number where 2 is the number of digits after the decimal, comma or whatever it is. In this case, it's a dot, right? So give me just format my number this way. And for example, number 10, if we would just do console log 10, we would just say 10. Like this. It's 10, right? But we can say, give me the number 10 where I have 2 digits after the decimal point. And it formats this number that way. So we can also provide a bigger number. So say format this 0.1 and you should give me a number. You should format it in a way that after the decimal point, there are 16 digits. Now, what I was mentioning previously is that numbers in JavaScript are basically approximations. So, no, of course, the exact values like 10 can be expressed exactly, but 0.1 here is an approximation. And if we say 17, now we see something interesting. Because when we said format 0.1, where after the decimal digit, at the decimal point, we have 16 numbers, it gives us an exact value. However, when we start growing this, we start seeing some kind of interesting things going on there. And you imagine that this would be 0.1. However, this exactly represents the picture that decimal numbers are approximations. As I was saying, the numbers in JavaScript are 64-bit numbers. However, only 52 bits are used to represent the value. And of course, we would have to do some kind of compromise. We cannot express the values exactly in this case. And that is why we're having some kind of random, I'm not even sure if these are random numbers, but anyway, the precision here starts to degrade because of how numbers are implemented in JavaScript. And that is exactly why 0.1 plus 0.2 is not equal to 0.3. That is exactly why. However, what we can do here, for example, to try to solve this.
We have 16 connect.
No. Again, what I was saying is that we the value, the numeric value that we provide to this toFixed function, that means format this number in a way that after the decimal point there are 16 digits. It could be 17, it could be 2, it could be 0, it could be 100.
So if it's like transform these numbers to fixed up to 16, we will get the true, yeah? After 16, it's getting both.
Yeah, well, we could just do 2 fixed, yeah, like 2 to just get this first value, and that would fix the here. The other thing is that you can just multiply 0.1 with 10. Well, you can multiply it with 10, and you will get 1. You will get an integer, and you can do the math, and then divide by 10 again, and then compare, and then do the comparison. Okay, so that way you can kind of treat the mathematics in JavaScript. Yeah, so that's about the tricky part. And toFixed is very is just quite often, because if you would like just to have all your numbers to have only 2 decimal points, toFixed is the function you will use. Another interesting one is parse integer number. So you can say, of course, we did not get into the strings, but we can have like string values here. I'm sure you know what string are, but we're going to talk about strings next. We can just, grab the value from the string, because, okay, so what we do is we can do type of 1034, and the type of this value is string. It's not an actual number. It's not type of 1034. It's not a number. So we can parse textual data in JavaScript into numbers using parse int. And the second parameter is the base. If I'm not mistaken, if you do not specify the base, the default one is our normal decimal numbers. We can also say parse this as an hexadecimal number, for example. It can do that. The other one is parse float, right? So we have kind of 2 types of numbers. And we have the integer numbers without decimal point part, and we have floating point numbers, which, and an example would be 3.45, for example. This is a floating point number because we have this decimal point here, and again, it can parse it as a number. But the point of showing this parse float was also to discuss this NaN. Does anyone know what this is? Not a number. Now, this value is extremely interesting, because the constant value is NaN. It is an actual value. It's an abbreviation, you can put it that way, NaN, not a number. So this is, you might think this is not a number, but it is a number.
Type, yeah.
And it is a number. So NaN is used to represent an error of some mathematical operation. So you try to, I don't know, do NaN NaN of plus 1, the result is always NaN. So whatever you do with NaN, it's always NaN, not a number. However, one exception would be to do this, and these two asterisks mean to raise a number to the power of something. So 2 double asterisk 3 would be raised to the power of 3, which is 8. And a similar math function would be pow or power, so raise 2 to the power of 3. So this is the same thing, just different syntax. So NaN raised to the power of 0 is 1. This is the only example, the only case with none where you will get another value. Also, in regards of values in JavaScript, we also have the infinity. So, for example, if you divide 1 to 0, you get infinity. If we try to divide -1 to 0, it will get minus infinity. So we have infinity, we have minus infinity. So another interesting thing we have is mod max. So it will just return the maximum number in the given set. So in this case, it's 4. And this is the yesterday's quickie part. We say, give me the maximum number of the given set. We don't give a set, and it says minus infinity, which is quite strange. And if we say, give me the minimum number of an empty set, it says plus infinity, which is also not intuitive. So these are a couple of functions. One more, or a couple of more interesting functions would be math, for example, .floor, which would mean to round your number down to your closest integer. So 3.4 would be rounded down to 3. 3.5 would be still that. 3.6 would be that. So it also rounds the number down to the closest integer. And another function would be math dot trunk. Trunk. Yes. So it just kind of strips the decimal part of the number. So if it's we get 4 here. If it's minus 1, you get the -1 part, right? It just strips the decimal part. This is not rounding. This is stripping the decimal part. It's slightly different from rounding, because if we do floor, we get this, right? So on the negative scale, the rounding works the other way around. Okay. So another fun thing about the NaN, not a number. If we have a value which is NaN, is it the same as another NaN? No, it's not. It is also not kind of intuitive, because we're kind of it's expected, right? 1 is 1 equal to 1. Yes. It is 5 equal to 5. Yes, we should expect, but none is never equal to none. When we use this equality operator, this is an equality operator. I just use it here to just show that this is also a quirky part. There is a method and object. Not blob event, but object.is, and at the end we can use this and in this case none is none. So object is kind of fixes the issue with this equality operator. We will get to equality operator when we go into comparisons, etc. But I just wanted to show that you should also be careful with none when comparing values with the equality operator, since we're already talking about the numbers. Okay, so I think that's about that. Also, also the way to check if your value is a none is the number.isNone function. There's an isNaN function, so we can use that to check if NaN is NaN. So for example, you have a variable and you would like to check whether it contains another number value. You can use number is NaN. Do not worry at all. Whatever I show here, I will be posting in Telegram, so you don't have to memorize this right now. You don't have to write it down. I'll post it in Telegram. I'll make sure that you have the list, because you will need the list to also be because you will also be going through Eduardo Bagrov's course. So he'll be doing more practical stuff with this.
Can you come into anti-Bitcoin and so? Okay, now none of us in
Oh yeah, that stuff you should know by heart, I guess, or that comes with practice. But my goal is to show, if you would like to check that the value is none, you would use number dot is none, because again, as I was talking yesterday, I'm trying to minimize that I don't know part, right? So if you didn't know that there was a possibility to do that, it would be quite hard to check if the value is none itself. It's still rounding down, because that's what I was saying. On the negative scale, the absolute value, even is usually bigger. On the negative scale, the value is that value is smaller. So it works correctly on both scales.
or is forward.
Minus forward.
Minus 3.8 should be floored, let's put it that way, to minus 4, because minus 4 is smaller than minus 3.8. Okay. So we have 17-ish minutes to also discuss strings, one of the important topics, and we're at 17 minutes. Sorry about that. I should do time management better. Okay, so we discussed booleans, true, false. We discussed numbers. Now we're getting to another basic type of values in JavaScript, which is also primitive. And it's quite interesting. You can do lots of stuff with strings, lots of interesting things. And strings and numbers and booleans and arrays is the base that Bagarov will be taking and doing some interesting stuff for you. So so you should be learning these basic types quite well. So, okay, let's start with string. We've already seen the strings. We can put pretty much any kind of data, or we can type whatever we would like in a string. But what is a string? So the string data type is kind of distinct in JavaScript. So we can create a string type in a few ways, right? So, or rather 3 ways. So this one is a string literal, which means a literal value. So we're working with the value itself. We're not working with a variable. So we call this a string literal or numeric literal, whatever. When you work exactly with the value, a variable is called a literal. So the first way to create a string is to put your characters inside your single quotes. That would be one option. Second option would be to use double quotes. Still, you get a string. The third option, which was added in 2015 with the addition of ECMAScript 6, is to use backticks, and still you get a string. Then you would ask, why do we have 3 ways of doing the same thing? Because the answer is because there are some subtle differences. And for example, you would like to have some new line in the middle of your string. So how would you do that, right? So with the single quotes, you would have to use a special kind of thing, a special character. This /n instead stands for new line. So you would have to, it's called escaping. So new lines, tabs, anything like that, if you like to have in your string, you would have to basically escape that. So to escape these characters, you will need to use this backslash, or yeah, this is a backslash. So okay, what if you would like to have another single quote as a string in your string? You can do this, right? No, you cannot do that because this is a syntax error. Because now your engine cannot identify whether this is a string. No, we can see this is a string, but what is this? It just cannot understand. This is syntax error. So how do we put a single quote into a string in a single quote? So the way we do that is we escape that character. So that is why we have the concept of escaping characters. This is not only specific to JavaScript. However, to do that, to put a single quote in a string which is already in a single quote, you would have to escape that single quote.
And sorry, another option, like we can put in double quotes. Yes,
Correct. Yes, we're getting to that example. So, okay, so what if we put double quotes? We can do this. We can also do this, because in double quotes, you do not have to escape single quotes. So your control characters, let's put it that way, are not duplicated. Now, both of these examples actually worked because here the single quote was escaped and correctly recognized as a single quote. And in here, we do not escape it, and it still works because we have our string in double quotes.
or oppositely, like one backward.
That is correct. That is correct. And oppositely, as our colleague mentions, if we would like to have double quotes in a single quote string, we would also have to either escape it or just simply use it, because it's the same, since we're using double quote in a single quote. This is the subtle difference between them. Now, you might ask, then why do we have a third option to create strings? Backticks. This symbol is called backtick, a backtick. Okay, so the short answer to that question is that you can kind of compose some variables, different values together in this third option quite in a nice way and easily. So, for example, let's imagine we have two const first name equals to %, and const last name equals to Melikian. So how do we kind of combine these strings together? That operation is called concatenation. So in JavaScript we can do it like this, for example, first name and plus and last, right? So this would be a string concatenation. However, yeah, did you notice that there was no space between the name? This is normally not correct. So okay, so how do we do that? Maybe we can just add a space in the middle and that works. Yes, that does. However, we can do it even in a nicer way. We can have this syntax. We can say first name and space, and we can say last name, and we get the same. And so basically, you can see the difference here. Instead of using multiple concatenation operators, so this is the concatenation in case of strings, we can just use this $sign and this brackets here to just say put the value of the variable first name here. Then I want to have a space. Then I would like to have the value of the variable last name also here. So you are basically just composing variables in a string, literal.
Just one question, make this $sign is for Mac, yeah, and for Windows is another.
No, I remember. Well, no. This is a syntax thing. It's not about Mac. It's about JavaScript syntax. So if you would just put hash here, this would just be a string. Okay. So if you'd like this to be recognized, if you'd like last name to be recognized as a variable, you would have to type $sign and these squares here. Keep the brackets. Good point. Actually, you can write any kind of expression here. So, what example? What we can do? We can say, give me the result of 1 plus 5, and we get 6. So you can actually put any kind of expression here. That would be variable, that would be comparison, that would be addition, that would be a function call. You can put everything there. So we can do console log 1 and and it says undefined, which is correct because the function console log returns undefined. So you don't have to worry about that. I'm just showing you that you can just put anything, any kind of expression in here, and that works. And that's why it's powerful. You can compose things together. We didn't even scratch the basics of, you know, the template literals. This is called template literal. I mean, the string in backticks is called template literal. And the string that we have on the top this is called a template string. And it's quite powerful. You can do a lot of stuff with that. So that's a couple of ways to compose strings. So now we have the first name, right? So it's Arsen. Can we somehow count the number of characters here? By the way, we do not have the distinct character type in JavaScript. If you would like to have only a character or something like that, and you just have a string with one letter, that would be a character. However, it's still a string. Your empty string looks like this, or this, or this. And okay, so how many characters are there in my first name? There are 5 characters. Okay, so dot length is the property you should use to check the number of characters in the string. Okay, how many characters are there in the empty string? 0. That's correct. And let's okay. Cool. So what if I would like to get? Okay, let's do another thing. Let's lowercase first name, Carson. So you notice my first name is lowercase, and that's intentional. So what if I would like to get these 8? So how do I do that? So okay, so the syntax for that is after the variable name, which holds your string, you put square brackets and you say, give me the very first item in there, and a 0 here is an index, and in JavaScript, the indexes of string characters, the indexes of arrays start from 0. So that's something very important for you to remember. So yeah, give me the first character, and the index of the first character is 0. So give me the item with index 0. It's 1. Okay. So what's the item with index 1? It's okay. It's R. So how do I get this one? Should I just manually just go through everything? Yeah, we can do that. But what if the string has 1,000 characters or number of characters we do not know?
Well, -1.
Correct. So we can go with length, but the indexes go from 0 to length -1. So we have to do -1, and that would give me n. So this seems quite repetitive, and it's kind of long to write. So is there a better way to do this? Yes, there is. So it turns out we have this method on string variables or values called at. It's very similar to these square brackets, and we can say give me the character at index 0. It still gives a. It's still the same as this. However, there is a difference. Now the difference comes where we try to get the last item, right? So in the example on the top, what we did was to use way to calculate the length of the string, way to do -1. So we'd have to do some stuff to get the last character. We can do this easier. So what we can do is we can say, give me the letter at index -1. And that gives us the last index. Do you see this -1? So this is kind of the similar parts. We just kind of skip doing the length stuff, etc. So it's generally recommended to use this at to just keep doing all this with dot length -1 stuff. So that's about that. Yeah, strings are immutable. What does that mean in JavaScript? So lower case first name. Okay, so if we can get the first element, the first character in my name, can we change it? Can we assign it R? Okay, it did not give me an error, but did it actually change? It did not change. So what I was saying here, change the first letter in my name to R. It said, okay, yeah, no errors. It appeared that it worked, but it did not, because string values in JavaScript are immutable. You would have to create a new variable or a completely new value and modify with that modified character. So the way we would do is it would be R plus lowercase first name. I'm just trying to kind of show you the way how to do this. Okay. So we're trying to get to the place where my name is Rsen. So that's what we're trying to do. Okay. So the A is kind of should be skipped here. Okay. So how do we do that? There is another method on the string which is called slice. So what it does, we can give a start index and an ending index to slice, and it will just give you the slice, that kind of range of in your string. So we can say, give me the part of the string starting from the first index, and the first index is R. So, and that way we're basically getting the R, S, E, N letters, and we're kind of just dropping the A. So we can say R plus slice. The other thing we can do, we can go for template literals. Again, we can do this, and we can say R. So it's just the same kind of thing. Okay, so slice is an interesting one. Slice is the way to get some kind of substring in your string from start index to end index. So give me like from 0 to 2, it will just give me 0, 1. It will not give me 2, because again, this end index is also exclusive, very similar to what we have with math random. It gives a value from 0 to 1, 1 is exclusive. Okay, so now we know the strings are immutable. Now we know we can use slice. We can, of course, but there's an issue with my name here because it's all in lowercase. We can kind of also change the case. We can go to uppercase. It just uppercases the whole string. We can also use the first name, and we can go to lowercase. As you recall, the variable first name holds my name as in a correct format, so we can do lowercase. So you can change the case. Actually, these two lowercase and two uppercase are used very often, so I recommend you remember that. Another interesting thing is that if we have some spaces in our string and would like to remove them, right? We would like to kind of remove these appending and prepending spaces. There's another method called trim. It just kind of removes these spaces from the beginning and from the end of your string. So this is also so what I'm trying with this method that I'm showing you is actually quite used, and also use them quite frequently. So these are the practical ones. There are a lot of other methods in JavaScript, the other kind of operations you can do with strings, and
It's good. Trim parameter spaces. Trim parameter. Man, yes,
yeah. So trim only trims the spaces in the beginning and at the end of the string. If you would put something in the middle, it preserves that, so it does not.
In this case, we will use plate.
Well, you would have to use replace in this case. You would have to use replace all, and you would say, given all the spaces, just kind of remove them. Okay, replace all the posts. Yeah, that's great. So yeah, I would also need to say, so what we have here, it says, given this string, replace all occurrences of spaces with empty strings. So yeah, thanks. That can work. So you would use this one. Yeah, what else we have? Now we're going to see a method which returns a boolean, the one that I mentioned. So we are at the Melik down here office. So we have this string. Now we're trying to see it. Do we have the word office in this string? If we just need a true, false kind of answer, we can use includes. Does this string includes office, the word office in it? Yes, it does. True. Does it includes office one in it? No, it does not. So we can use includes. It's also used quite a lot in JavaScript, so this is a good function to remember.
This person is sensitive.
Oh, pardon? No, it will. No, it's not. It's not the case, but the order of characters is also important, right? So if we would write includes Adamian office, that would be true because the sequence characters is exactly kind of matched in the original string. So it's kind of looking for an exact match, and it is also case sensitive. So if I would go for a uppercase Adamian, it would not recognize. No, it's what it is going to do. It's just going to say whether your substring is included in the original string. It's not going to kind of count do that. So the second kind of value you could pass to the includes is the starting position, right? So you could say start from index 5, and the index 5 would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So starting this. Starting here, look for Adamian office, and that would still be false. But if I would to lowercase this, it would be true. So that's also about that. Okay, so I've shown quite a lot of methods here in regards to strings, in regards to numbers. So again, I'm not expecting you to memorize this right now, or I'm not expecting you just know this by heart at this moment. Again, I will be putting links in Telegram, and you have your Saturday and Sunday. So I suggest you go through all the learning material, because on Monday we will continue with strings. There is a few stuff I would also like to show, and then we will get to working with arrays, which is a very, very important topic, important and interesting topic. Yes. Yeah.
And how do you already as a meeting at the same time each day? What is the space?
Yeah, so the thing is that's a good question. Actually, I was going to get to that, but before we get to questions like this, do we have any questions regarding the session? People on site and on the call. If there are any questions, I'll be answering them, and then let's discuss some other organizations. Okay, so let's start with single quotes, right? So, Arsène's birthday. Okay, so Arsène's birthday is an expression where we will have to use a single quote, but as our string in JavaScript, but since we already use it singular quotes to compose our string, we just cannot use these Arsène's. The cadus. We cannot use the single quote here, so we would have to escape it. The other way that would be to put the whole string in double quotes, and since we're now mixing double quotes with single quotes, it works. So we do not have to escape it here. However, we can do so, but it's just more work, and it's unnecessary work, because now we have our single quote used in a double quote, so we do not have to escape it. And vice versa is also true. If I would just use the double quotes here incorrectly, of course, that would also work. We do not have to escape it, however we can, but the result is absolutely the same because we are mixing the types of quotes. The only problem comes when you are trying to use double quotes in its double quoted string, right? You will get a syntax error, you would have to escape it, or you are trying to use single quotes in a single quote string. You would also have to, escape your single quote there. There are a lot of other characters that we might want to escape, but I'm not going to go into the details. I will send you the learning materials. You can go look up. There are lots of other kind of control characters that should be escaped. So yeah, but the quick answer to your question is in singular quoted string, you have to escape your single quote. In double quoted strings, you would have to escape your double quotes. Let's try that. I don't know. Next. Well, as you can see, I just declared the same variable twice as a var, no errors, and I declared the same variable with let twice and no errors. So there is a subtle but very important difference between var and let, which is called hoisting, correct? However, I don't think we need to go into such technical depth. Just know that var exists. It's an obsolete way it's an old way, an obsolete way to declare your variables. Try to avoid it. Do not use it in modern JavaScript. Use let and const. If there are any issues, your JavaScript engine will let you know. Okay, so with var it's slightly complicated. You might get some logical issues with var over kind of defining things. With let and const, you are not going to get there. If the compiler, if the engine doesn't like something you do with let and const, it is going to let you know. So just use let and const and you'll be on the safe side. Yeah. Yeah, that's a possibility. That's a possibility. I'm not aware how each JavaScript engine is implemented. There are, of course, differences. Maybe such differences exist in different engines. So I'm not aware of all of them. But also to just refer to the single quote thing, it's not about making this single quote readable. You will get a syntax error in JavaScript. So this is the language thing itself and not a readability thing. So that is why we have the concept of escaping characters. To make it to interpret the code, let's put it that. Sure. Any other questions? No.